Can I have y'all's attention? Alcoholic named Jay? Good to see everybody here. We'll have more people trickling in as we go along, but one of the blessings of today is that we are only 10 minutes behind on the point with his better than last night. And let me tell you, we were an hour and a half behind last night, but we still got to do everything that we had planned to do. We just shuffled it around a little bit. So we kind of took this into consideration, and I think this is going to be great because, as everybody knows, there's a continuation of the AA, first ever Common Solutions AA Prison Convention, ever been held, as far as we know, as far as I know, and so I've been told, within a prison in the United States, in the world. And what makes this convention different from what we've done in the past is usually right around Christmas time, we have a big AA party. Something very similar. We have speakers, we have guests, present awards, have great fellowship. Well, what makes this special is today, because today we had the extra day. Usually we have 3 hours on a Friday, and we got to cram in everything we want to do. But today we have a straight 7.5 hours. Speakers, workshops, we're going to go buck wild. And it's going to be nice. Yeah. So we definitely want to thank everybody who's helped to assist. We'll let you know as things keep going along. But what I want to do is to start this thing off right. We're going to do Serenity Prayer and have the readings. And then we're going to go straight into our in-house speakers. And we have 3 good ones. I know. I'm telling you. So let's start off with a moment of silence, followed by a Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thanks. I'd like to call Dean up here to read AA, the prologue.
AA prologue. Oh, I'm Dean. I'm a good becoming human being. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience and hopes with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues, no fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contribution. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any cause. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Hey, thank you. How it works?
Dave, alcoholic. Everybody. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They're naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we're like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery.
Vince, I'm alcoholic. 12 steps of AA. We admit we are powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Number 1. Number 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry these messages to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Thank you.
Still Dave, still alcohol. Many of us exclaimed, "What in order? I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We're not saints. The point is we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we're alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C, that God could and would if he were sought.
I'm Joe, I'm an alcoholic and addict. 12 traditions of AA. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous, accepting matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA, as such, ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thanks, gentlemen. Now I'd like to turn things over to our first in-house speaker. Dino, would you like to come on up here? Let's give him a little encouragement.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for this opportunity to come up here and speak. Dean, I'm an alcoholic. When I was thinking about this whole AA convention, it put me in mind of, Dr. Bob and Bill W. And respect that, I wonder how they would have felt if they was alive today and seeing what was going on. I reckon that they would be pretty happy to see how they work. Not only, expanded, but it's still moving on. And people are still getting delivered today from alcohol and other things. I could go on and on about, things I used to drink like 40 Red Bull or Southern Comfort or 2020 Mad Dog. I can go into all this, but just name a few. But, one aspect of my recovery, my alcoholism that I will get into, I remember when I was 15 years old, and so me and my homeboys, we wanted to get drunk. We all young, we underage, so so we had this problem. The problem was that we couldn't buy alcohol from the bar. So we figured how we gonna do this. And I remember we sat there, we put our heads together, we start thinking. So I said, I know what we can do. We gonna find a drunk, we gonna pay him all some money, have him go in there get it for us, So this is what we did. We found a guy. We said, look here, man. We buy you this and this if you get us this and this. So he did it. But the point of the reason why I said this was because here it is. I'm thinking that I was wise. I'm thinking, boy, that I thought of something new that nobody never done before. It's almost like I thought that was the best I ever did and came back with it. But, come to find out when I read the big book, there was a guy in the big book that did the same thing I did probably like 40 years ago before. So, and that's the cunningness of the disease. It made me think that, I was wise, but actually I was a fool. And that's what it made me think. But I had a tough journey these 12 years I've been locked up. I'm looking at a guy who had lost both his parents on this incarceration. But there's a distinct difference how I handle. When my father passed away, my mother came on a visit. She told me, say, look, your dad died. I cried, and when I got back upstairs, and I had a fit. I started throwing soap around. Threatening people. Kicking the door, stuff like that. They called the goon squad on me, but when they understood the situation, they said, well, no, we ain't gonna lock you up, but we're gonna sit down and talk with you, and they talked with me. But this time, back in April 30th of this year, I come back from child, and I get this phone. When I get back from child, officer tell me, she said, Dean, you got to go up to the captain's office. I didn't know what it was for, so I figured the first thing that, it could be that I might have got a ticket or something like that. I said, well, damn, I ain't do nothing. What was going on? So, but when I get up there, I get to the captain, grabbed the phone, and when he soon grabbed that phone, I knew something was wrong. And then when he called me home, my sister was on the phone, she started crying, and she said, mom died, and I had too much pride to shed a tear in front of the captain and CO2 that was there. So I held my tears almost halfway so I got back until a brother of mine, I just bust out crying, and he was there to console me. But the point I'm saying is that the first time, I handled death in my family, I handled it the wrong way. Started drinking, because in jail, we drinking jailhouse wine to jump steady. So that's what I was doing, And then God gave me a joint, spoke that too, But this time, when my mother passed away, I guess that now, I was older and more mature, and that the principles of AA had helped me, and has had a chance to work on me. I think about in the high verse where it says that, we grow along spiritual lines, and the guys, we set down the guys of progress, we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection, but I also, I think about Paul, what he says that, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things, and I think, and I know it's just by the grace of God that I'm sitting here today, standing before y'all able to share this message, but there's a common, what's the right word to put it? It's something that we all suffer from, rather us being locked up or y'all be on the street. We still suffer from that disease of alcoholism. And that disease don't care, who we are, where we from, what color we are, what sex we are, how old we are, whatever. It don't care. It'll slave us just like it'll slave you out there. It's a truth that I have come to understand is that, I've seen a lot of guys during my incarceration go out, come back, go out, come back, go out, come back. I see many guys like that. And sometimes it scares you because it makes you think that, damn, is that going to happen to me when I go out there, screw up and come back? But I heard this saying that I shared the meeting before, that before the man can come out of prison, you must first take the prison out of man, and obviously these guys that went out there and came back, obviously there was some prisons from inside that they was not delivered from, and so a lot of these guys, same reason, peer pressure, messing with the women out there, or messing with them drugs out there, alcohol, whatever. And the thing is, I look at that and I say, man, I don't want that to be me. When I go out there, I want to stay out there. I don't want to come back. And there's only one way possible that can happen. It's that I surrender to my higher power. He the only one that can truly regulate this mind here. You know, it says that we must change people, places, and things. You know, but the only way that can really happen is that we have to change our way of thinking. That's the only way I believe that can really happen. And as far as touching spiritual reality, I look at it like this. You know, my higher power doesn't care what is second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or even seventh in your life, as long as you put him first. So I had to put him first. And secondly, I had to put AA and its principles. You know, and other point that I've come to realize is that the main thing is that I learned this on the drug tier when I was on the drug tier is that relax begin in the mind. This is where true relax begin at. It's right in here. So if we want to stay delivered from drugs and alcohol or whatever, we have to regulate this constantly on a daily basis. You know, because the enemy can slip in there anytime. You know what I mean? Put that thought in your mind. And then if you continually entertain that thought and continually think upon it, eventually you're going to do it because really actions are really nothing but a manifested thought. You know, the thing is that, like I said, this is my first time in jail. You know, I came to prison, I was young, and I was 18 years old. Now I'm 30 years old, you know, and I think about all the years that went by. I think about, you know, my family members that passed off, you know, and I think about all this stuff. But yet, you know, in my higher power, it still gave me the grace that I need to continue on today, you know, and to grow up to be a real man. You know, there's a difference between being a male and a man, you know, and I don't want to be a male. Anybody can be a male, but I want to be a man. You know, this is the thing I want to be. And before I close, I want to end off with this saying that I had written down that kind of touched me. It says, in ancient days, before phone, before faxes, and overnight delivery services, important messages such as the outcome of a battle were delivered to the king by runners. A messenger with bad news might be punished or even killed, but a bearer of good news might receive a special reward. In our recovery, it's important to remember that we are messengers of the AA 12 steps. When we share our spiritual awakenings with others, it not only helps them, but also benefits us by reinforcing and strengthening our growth. That's all I have to share. And with this, I keep coming back.
Thank you, Dean. One thing I did want to mention was one of the things that started this convention off, first as an idea, was back in 1999, we had this idea about starting a 12-step workshop. And, yeah, you know, the concept was we wanted to get guys to work the steps. Lots of people attend meetings. Lots of people get involved in the fellowship. But whoever really recovers. And we noticed that a lot of people who are attending, they don't get well. And we were trying to figure out why. It's because we didn't have a very strong sponsorship element. We didn't have a very strong step working ethic. And so through the help of a fellow named Dr. Paul O., who is the cat who wrote the chapter in the big book called Dr. Alcoholic Addict, we managed to put together what we call the 12-step workshop, which runs on Sundays. And the thing I wanted to mention about Dean is Dean was one of the first guys who got involved with the 12-step workshop. And he's been a facilitator. You know what? Back when he first went through, he was a graduate in 1999. He worked all 12 steps all the way through with a sponsor who just so happens to be here tonight. Let me look over. Duke? Hurry, yeah, Duke. There you are. I see it. Yeah. So it just so happens that Duke, temporary sponsor. And here's the deal. We were able to get temporary sponsors from various home groups, people in Columbia, people from Common Solutions, who are interested in being sponsors to guys in here. We managed to do 4th steps. We did 5th steps. In fact, we sectioned off all of Quarter End, which is a therapy room, like a whole corridor with about 7 different rooms, and gave each guy the chance to spend 4 weeks or 5 weeks, however long it took, to do one-on-one, face-to-face 5th steps with their sponsor. And like we talk about the spiritual awakening part, the steps are designed to create a spiritual awakening. And it's from doing the steps that people, when that spiritual awakening, when it kicks in, that's when people recover. And they can know that from that point on, the desire to drink or to use goes from like up here, down to a manageable level, because they finally have a higher power in their life that manages that for them, and it frees the guy up or the lady up to go ahead and live life the way it was meant to be lived. And I just want to thank you, Dean. You've been a part of the STEP Workshop for 3 years now. Not only did he complete the first time around, he stayed on into the class of 2000 and into the class of 2001, being a facilitator, helping the other guys, exercising the 12th step, which was active work with newcomers. And he'll be around when we graduate, the guys from this rotation, and we'll name them a little bit later. But I also wanted to mention the other initial workshop facilitators that graduated. We have Jeff over here. You want to raise your hand, Jeff? And it just so happens, Reese, don't try to hide. Maurice right there. Good to see you. So just like our theme, there is a common solution, inside, outside. This thing works in here just like it works out there, as long as we follow the program. And that's what I think. Deb, you want to talk about that program? Let's come on up here.
First off, I want everybody to know I'm real nervous. I never did this before. Jay stopped me like 3 days ago in the hallway and said, I'm going to be speaking. And I'm like, no, I'm not either. Like, yes, you are. So, oh, I'm sorry. I'm Debbie. I'm an alcoholic and addict. At first, I really didn't know what I was going to talk about because, I really don't like to share a lot of my life. But then I said, you got to give it away to get rid of it. Can you hear me? Am I talking too loud? Anyway, I started drinking alcohol when I was 10 years old. You friends and me went to a schoolyard, and not like Dean, we didn't have no problem getting any to buy the alcohol for us. We just go to a guy and say, where you go get it. That was no problem. Started out Boone's Farm, apple wine, then went to strawberry. And from that to marijuana, speed, acid. But when I turned 13, I stopped doing all that. I got with my first husband and got married when I was 17 years old. And it was an abusive relationship. He beat me up all the time. I wasn't allowed to go out of the house, or if we was riding down the street and I'd look over and there was a guy there, he would hit me, so I was like in prison. I had a baby when I was 17, and that was my life, staying in the house and taking care of my child. He ended up leaving me for another woman, which was the best thing could ever happen to me, because I wanted to leave him, but I was afraid to, because it was one of them things where if you leave me, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your family and all that. So when we broke up, I called the girl up and I'm like, thank you. You just don't know what you did for me. I was real happy. But my self-esteem went way down because I thought I was the perfect mother, the perfect wife, did everything I thought I was supposed to do. So I said, well, this ain't working. I'm going to do it another way. So I started going to the bars and drinking. And, then I started getting sad, because a lonely drunk is a sad drunk. And I would go home every night and I'd be like, man, this just ain't right. I'm by myself. So I started doing drugs. I met a guy and started going out with him, and he was a heroin addict. And I liked taking sleeping pills and all that when I was younger, before I got with my first husband. So I said, well, I think I like this. I think it's what I want to do. But anyway, he told me I couldn't do it, so I didn't. And we were seeing each other about 6 months. And one night he was sick and didn't have money to buy the heroin. And I'm like, all right, I'll pay for it if I can do something. And he's like, all right, just one time, that's all you're going to do it. Well, I did it the one time. 3 weeks later, I broke up with him because the heroin was my man. He wasn't going to tell me what to do no more. And I felt good about myself. I could do anything I wanted to do. And I stayed on heroin for like 5 years. I told you, I ended up breaking up with him and ended up getting with my second husband. And I got him into the heroin because, if he didn't want to do what I was going to do, then, he can hit the road, because it wasn't going to be another relationship where man was going to tell me what to do. I changed my whole routine to where I was going to be the boss. And that didn't work either. So he ended up going to jail, and I stayed doing heroin. I had a daughter a year after we got married. I got pregnant, and after 3 months I was pregnant, he ended up going to jail. When he got out of jail, he wanted to move to Pennsylvania and straighten his life up. Well, I wasn't ready for that. So he went to Pennsylvania, and I stayed on the drugs. But this is my third incarceration. The first time I got locked up for possession with intent to distribute PCP, and I got 5 years suspended sentence, 5 years probation. Then I figured, well, I really ain't getting none. So like a few weeks later, my house got busted again. And that time I got 2 years and the year of unconcurred. And I only ended up doing like 17 months. When I got out of MCIW, my father and mother come and pick me up. And as soon as I got out of the car, a guy was coming across the street and he's like, "Hey, Dad, when did you get out?" And I'm like, "I just got out." And I was like happy to see him. And I walked in the house and my father said, "You know what, I don't give you a year before you're back in jail." And I'm like, "How could you say that? I just did all this time in jail. I'm not ever going to do it again." It wasn't 8 weeks later, I was back in jail. This time I went to D.C. and was going to buy some I did buy some PCP. Wanted to go to a Rod Stewart concert. So I went the night before I usually go, and I usually would go in the daytime. Well, I went on a Friday night instead of the Saturday daytime. And police, I went through a yellow light, got pulled over. I done smoked the dipper because I always wanted to know what it, if it was any good before I would buy it. And I was so high. And I ended up doing 26 months in a federal prison. And when I got out, the guy I was going with before I went to jail, he was out. He got out like a year before me. And he was selling heroin again. The same night I got out of jail, I OD'd, I was dead. They had to rush me to the hospital, and he was giving me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation all the way to the hospital, or I would have been brain dead. So it was like, I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to shoot it because I shot the heroin. So I started snorting it. Well, that wasn't doing no good, so I went back to shooting it again. And I finally got on a program because I just got tired of the chase. And he was still doing heroin and was out stealing, and went to Carroll County and got locked up and got a charge. And he asked me to bring in some drugs in jail, and I took them, and that's what I'm here for now. With him and I was together for 8 years. I took him heroin. I got 10 years without parole, and he got out, and right now he's married and has a baby, But I don't blame it on him. I'm the one made the choice to do it. For a long time, I said it was his fault. I'm in here. It's his. Nobody made me do anything. My parents would always be, if you weren't with him, you wanted to do this. Well, that's why I was with him, because that's what I wanted to do. And, all the time I was locked up, I was like, I always had a scapegoat. Like, this one's make me do this one, that one's make me do that. And I knew something wasn't right. The way I was doing it wasn't working. So that's why I come to Retuxan, because I'm like, when I'm over MCIW, my whole neighborhood's over there. It's like they take breaks, from drugging or drinking. They come over there, get themselves clean for a while, go back out and do it over again. And I don't want that no more. I have 3 children. I have a 25-year-old son and a 19-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. And my 2 oldest is doing real good. Right now, my 16-year-old is, he was on home monitor. He's been on home monitor twice. Once when he was 10 years old. I think he was the youngest one ever on home monitor. And he just turned 16 and he was on it again. And the judge told him he had to go back to court next month. And if he got in any trouble, he was going to get put away till he was 21. Well, he ran off a home monitor. So he's out there right now running the street and doing whatever he wants to do. And for the first time, when I talked to my mom, I'm like, I hope they lock him up. And I never wanted to see anybody locked up before. But when I talked to his aunt, and they said that he's out there getting high, running around with guns, being shot at, shooting at people, I would rather see him put away right now at that age. And, be there when I got out than for me not to say nothing and him be gone by the time I come home. And it's real hard, but I've never worked the program before. When I was out, I never did AA or NA. And, I thought I could do it all on my own. When I'm ready to stop, I'm going to stop. I don't need no help. And, I know that's not the way it is anymore. You always need somebody. You can't do everything on your own. So, has it been 10 minutes, Jay? All right, cool. So, thanks for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Deb. I knew you could do it. See, it goes quick. Easy as pie. Next guy I want to ask up, he's another one of the workshop facilitators, class year 2000. Again, he stayed on to help work other guys through the steps. He sponsored a couple guys that I know of, has really put forth a lot of effort. He's on the committee to help run this thing, and has been very valuable to just sticking with it. I'd like to introduce Rad.
I'm Ray. I'm an alcoholic and addict. I usually say my name is Ray because with a name like Rad, it's like almost impossible to remain anonymous. But as like something I'd rather do everywhere in a place like this. But in this program, it doesn't mean a whole lot to me that that people don't know who I am, because I'm kind of glad to be a part of this program. And because most of my life, I never fit in with anything. I never really found a crowd that I could relate to. And, I'd say the majority of my life, every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a stranger. And, just from feeling like that, I found drugs and alcohol at an early age. And right away, I discovered something that took me out of myself. It was a way for me to have fun because, I'm the type of person I'm not easily impressed. And life for me has always been just, it's been like a chore. And when I started drinking when I was 7 years old. And it was something I felt like I could fit in with people. And those people were my family. And, I started drinking with my family. I had a good childhood. I grew up, with good parents, a good home. I lived in a nice neighborhood. It was a good childhood. It just wasn't a good childhood for me because, as early as I can remember, I remember hating life, and I never knew why. But, I started drinking with my family, and I grew up with a mother who was a drunk. I grew up with a stepfather who was a drunk, and I grew up with a dad who worked all the time. I never saw him too much. But, something happened. Something changed. In 91, I went to rehab, and in order for me to have a better home to come home to once I came home from the rehab, my mother and my stepfather stopped drinking. And my mother's been clean and sober in the program ever since 91. And obviously I didn't stop then. I got out of rehab and I kept going. And, my disease progressed really fast. I didn't have like a whole lot of time to enjoy what I was doing, the parties and the all these great experiences. That stuff was over like almost as soon as I started because, I'm the type of person I like to do things to the extreme so much. It's like, everything I've done it to the extreme, and I've done it like right away. So, like I said, my disease progressed really fast, and, I went through high school. School was a joke to me. I went to school just to sell drugs. And my senior year in high school, I was 8 days short of perfect attendance. I think I was the only, junkie to ever complete high school with that type of attendance record. But the only reason I graduated was because my teachers were so sick of seeing me every day. Because I'd go into class, I'd go to sleep, and when I woke up, I'd tell them, I'm not doing any homework. See you tomorrow. And that was high school. When I came out of high school, I probably didn't have half the knowledge I needed to pass a GED test. When I came to prison, I could barely read. And, you know, that was the type of life that the drugs and the alcohol gave me. You know, I was a spectacle. I was like a clown for everybody to laugh at. And because the chemicals numb my brain so much, I never realized that. I thought I was cool. I thought everybody liked me because they laughed at me. Nobody liked me. They liked having me around because I was a joke, because I made people laugh, you know. And it took me years to realize that. And so, you know, I graduated high school, and I made it about not even a year, and I started getting locked up. And it was different, you know. Everything was kind of fun in high school, because I could get locked up and go to court and tell a judge I'm in school, and they would say, okay, finish school, suspended sentence or probation or whatever. But once school was over, all that nonsense in court was over too. I started getting time, you know, and they started hitting me on the head for the dumb stuff that I was doing. And so, you know, I went to jail the first time. I did 8 months. I got high the whole time. It was a big joke. You know, I was on work release, and I got out, and just joking on my way out, it was an officer that I always used to talk to. And he, you know, on my way out the door, he said, you know, don't come back. I said, man, I'll probably be back sooner than you think. And, you know, it was a joke to me, but I only lasted a year and a half, which is pretty long in, you know, in some people's terms, I guess. But, I mean, there was no time for things to progress after that. I went right back to where I was before I got locked up. And I basically spent a year on the street shooting dope and stealing everything I could find. And even to me, that was like the lowest existence I could think of, you know, because I came from a good family and a good upbringing. But nothing, you know, none of it meant anything to me. I didn't care. I did the drugs so heavy and so fast that I forgot all the problems that made me start drinking and drugging. You know, it got to a point where I couldn't think of anything that was wrong other than, you know, the fact that I had to wake up every morning, if I woke up, if I ever got any sleep, you know, and I have to go through the same routine every day, find money, get high, get something to make me feel normal, you know. And, you know, I just knew there was no way I was going to stop on my own. You know, I'm 26 years old now, and I always tell people I'm 5 years past my expiration date, because I never, in my wildest dreams, expected to live past 21. You know, that was like the cutoff time. That was it. There was no way I was going to go past that, because I couldn't stand it anymore. Life was just such a bore. It was such a joke to me. You know, and I got to the point where I said the only thing that's going to stop me is if I get locked up. And I didn't want to get locked up. But obviously I did. And I've been locked up 4 years. I've been sober in about 3 years and 10 months. And I'd say the greatest thing for me so far is having people in my life, you know, who are positive role models. You know, I tend to look at bad situations and try and think of a positive outcome to every bad situation. And one of the greatest ones I can think of is how bad it was having a drunk as a mother growing up. Feeling so neglected, you know, and just hating my mother sometimes. That was a bad situation, but it's turned into one of the best situations I've ever experienced, because in those 3 years and 10 months, my mother has been like an inspiration to me more than anybody I've ever known in my life, because I've watched her work the program. I've seen the positive effects it has. I've seen her turn her life around completely. And she was like the first one that showed me that this program works. You know, and I have a sponsor on the outside, Bob G from the Agave Group. And same thing. He's really been an inspiration to me. You know, it's been such a joy working through this stuff. The good days, the bad days, everything. You know, my worst day today is better than my best day before. And, you know, my life was never good until I got those chemicals out of my system and I started working this program. Like Jay said, I've been involved with this step study group for 2 years now. And being able to sponsor guys, hear guys' fifth steps, give advice and all this stuff. Man, this is all stuff I never in my wildest dreams thought I would do. You know, Christmas parties, organizing stuff like this. Man, if somebody would have told me 4 years ago that I'd be doing this type of stuff, I'd have just laughed it off and forgot about it. Because, you know, I still look around sometimes and it's like, I can't even believe this is reality. But this is it, you know. This is how much better my life is today. And it wasn't that hard to get here. All I had to do was get honest with myself and admit some things to myself that I could never stand to even look at before. But now it ain't that bad. I'm comfortable today. You know, things are good. And this is the type of stuff I get to do. You know, I get to stand up here in front of all these people and talk. That's something I just never could have imagined. And if nobody else is impressed by this, you know, the first ever AA convention inside a prison, I'm impressed, and it takes a lot to impress me. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Ray. We're just about get ready to dismiss everybody. We'll start our workshops up. But before we go, I just want to mention we're passing around a big book that we would like to have everybody sign, everybody who's in attendance, so you can pick a page and just sign it. You remember back in high school with yearbooks? You got the idea. So before anybody goes at the end of the convention, we'll be doing this throughout, but before anybody leaves, sure enough leaves, don't forget to sign the book. It'll be floating around. With that, remember how we did last night? We got red team and blue team. Red team in the first classroom, blue team in the second classroom, and we'll start up our workshops.
All right, I'm getting ready to fire. Is the mic on? Yeah, the mic's on. I'm really loud anyway. Let's have a moment of silence, followed up by the serenity prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. Amen. My name is Betsy McGrath. I am a grateful alcoholic. Hi, everybody. I am so psyched to be here. This is, so cool. And we are at the workshop that is on sponsorship, which is just really appropriate in my life, which is probably why I'm speaking on a workshop on sponsorship. My sobriety date is May 3rd of 1985. I'm 36 years old. I was 20 years old when I got clean and sober, which was 1 year prior to my expiration date. As he just said, I didn't think I'd live to be 21, and it turns out I lived to be 21, but I was sober by the time I was 21. And I deeply, deeply love and respect the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that has completely and totally saved my life, given me a life, and made me the lady you see before you. And I state all that because I have a problem other than alcohol, and it has to do with other substances. And I respect AA, and I keep that there. I attend another fellowship for that, and I'm grateful for AA today. Let me just tell you that. I started drinking when I was 13. I remember my first drink as clear as if it was this morning. It was Southern Comfort, and the South rose again, and I puked all over the place, passed out. Don't remember how I got home, and I had a problem with alcohol from the get-go. By the time I was 16, I'm going to whiz through my story so fast, y'all are going to go, whoa! I talk fast, too. I'm from New York. It just happens, and so listen slow or listen fast or do whatever you need to do. I know after being sober, as long as I've been sober, by the grace of God, that there's only parts of me I can change. Parts of me God's not done with yet. We'll see if slowing down happens in the next bunch of years. That's all I know. At 16, I started drinking every single day. By 17, I was working in a nightclub. By 18, I was living on my own in a 3-bedroom house with a girlfriend. She and I, that place was a trip. We lived on Encounter Row, and it was appropriately named Encounter Row. And I spent the next 2 years drinking every single day. I was never arrested. I was never charged. I was never locked up. I have all these nevers, I've never gotten a DWI. I've never done this. I've never done that. I dated a cop, and if you date cops, they take care of their own, and that's how I got out of every legal jackpot I was ever in. And the gentleman that I dated who was a D.C. cop is still a buddy of my life today, and I'm very, very grateful for him. He's a sick, crazy man. and I got a seat for him when he's ready. But by the time I was 20 years old, my father had been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous for a year, and I saw his life change, and I said, I want what he has. I had moved 4 times around the D.C. Beltway, and my life was insane. So I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. I came into AA knowing what I was in for. I knew that if I came to AA, it meant stopping everything. It didn't mean just stopping the alcohol. It meant stopping absolutely everything. And I'm grateful today that I knew that. I'm glad today he was sober for me to watch him get sober. And now I'm going to go right into my sponsorship. That was my story. That's how I got here. That was what it was like and what happened. On May 3rd of 85, I had a profound personality change that was to begin. It's still an ongoing process. I always say I'm a work in progress because God's so far from done with me yet. But I'm a whole lot better than I was. And with his help, I got a shot at being a better person tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see what all that brings. When I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, they told me to get a home group and get a sponsor. I did both right away, and then I changed sponsors every week. I would get a woman who would hug me and be very nice to me. And I'm a mouthy little thing now at 36. You can bet I was a mouthy little thing at 20. I'd tell you where to go and how to get there in just beautiful terms. And the women and the men in Alcoholics Anonymous, when I got sober, just loved me. They just let me go off. They just let me be a freak. They just let me do whatever it was I needed to do. They said, as long as you're not drinking, honey, you're welcome here. We don't know what's in store for you, and we don't know if it's going to get better, but get a sponsor and get a home group. I got a home group. My first home group was Monday night, and it was Elkridge Monday night meeting, and I was actively involved in that group. We had about 150 people and had podium. And the first 3 months I was in that home group, I remember just looking around. I was shopping for a sponsor because I knew they kept saying, get a sponsor, and I kept going through this sponsor and that sponsor. And finally, I met a woman who was to be my first sponsor for the first 6 years of my recovery, and her name's Nancy Kay. And Nancy now lives in New Jersey, off exit 154 off the Garden State, if you know that area. And Nancy's just an absolute wonderful blessing in my life today. She's still in my life today. That woman absolutely loved me until I could learn to love myself. She was the beginnings of teaching me about how to be a lady. She was the one who told me, honey, you need to wear shoes. Honey, you need to not cuss every single sentence, every other word. Mother was half a word when I got sober, and it took a long time for it to be other than that, and she told me, if you want to stay sober, you got to do what I did. You don't have to necessarily do it the way I did it, but that's all I have to share with you. And she shared her experience, strength, and hope on working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. What I know today is that I am sober because of the foundation that was laid down before me, the foundation that she taught me, and the foundation that I've been walking this path ever since. I have actively worked all 12 steps a whole bunch of times. And I've done that not because I can put a little gold star up on my calendar. I've done it because I don't want to drink. Drinking for me was an answer. I needed to find another answer without putting alcohol in my body. I needed to learn how to suit up, show up, and grow up. And I want to let you know that grow up has been the hardest part for me. And that's what my sponsor became for me. What she became for me was a vision of what I could have. I picked Nancy because she was mouthy. She had tons of gold jewelry. She had a car she drove and it was pretty. She lived in a big, gorgeous house. She had a 3-car garage. And they said, find a sponsor who's got what you want. I thought, I want all that. I want the Mustang she only takes out when it's pretty. That's what I want. And the truth is Nancy had so much more than that. She gave me comfort and just a sense of ease I can't even describe to you. That woman absolutely walked on water for many years for me. She, as I said, she's still in my life. In fact, I led a meeting a couple nights ago. Somebody asked me to speak at the local AA clubhouse in Columbia, and I said I'd be glad to, but I need to talk on sponsorship. And they said, all right, fine, because I wanted to do a dry run. So I went over there and spoke on sponsorship and came home, and there was a message from her on my phone. And that woman is still actively acting as my sponsor. My daughter was up in camp, and she got involved and she's heavily involved in my daughter's life, and she wanted to know how my daughter was doing up at camp. I didn't come into AA to get a family, and I didn't come into AA to get, cute and nice and sweet and have a job and do amazing things. But that's all a direct result of working the steps for me. As far as sponsoring people in my life, I was about 3 months sober. I just got Nancy as my sponsor, and I was having a problem. And I don't remember what the problem was, and the problem was not relevant. I went up to an old-timer in my home group who had a couple of years. For me, that was like sober forever. And I told him, I said, I got this problem going on. And he says, you need to help a newcomer. And I said, I can't help a newcomer. And he said, why not? And I said, I've got only 3 months of sobriety. What can I possibly give someone else? And what he told me, he said, honey, if you meet somebody who's drinking today, you got 3 months more than they do. You got to give it away to keep it. And so I said, all right, fine. I was going to humor this man is what I was going to do. And I went home and I asked God to bring me a newcomer, if that be his will. And the next day at a 6:30 a.m. meeting, I met a woman who was still drinking. And her name was Beth. And I have no idea what happened to Beth. None. But at 6:30, I sat next to her and I smelled the alcohol coming out of her pores, man. And I was like, something kicked in. My brain kicked in. Newcomer, help her. You got 3 months. She smells like alcohol. You might have something you can give to her. You might be able to help her through the next day or something. And so I started talking to Beth at that meeting, and I said, look, I'm going to go on to a 8:30 meeting after this meeting. Do you want to go with me? And she said, I'd love to, but I want to drive myself. And I said, okay, honey. So I had her follow me in the car, and I swear to you, I never drive as good as when I have a newcomer behind me. And so I drove very carefully over to the next meeting. And when we got to the 8:30 meeting, I went running into the meeting and I grabbed up a man and a woman who had much more time than I did. And I said, I need your help. And they're like, what? I said, I got this new girl with me. She was drunk before she got to the club at 6:30. We're here. It's now 8:30 and she's drunker. And I don't know how that happened, but you got to come talk to her. Because the truth was I had a new woman that I wanted to help, but I had no clue what to do with it. None. And these two people came out and they sat on the step and we sat outside that meeting, which was Wednesday night Oakland Mills meeting. And we sat outside that meeting till 10 o'clock with that girl. And they talked to her for an hour and a half. And I sat there like a buzzard on the end of my seat, just trying to figure out what they were doing that was going to help her so that I would know. And what ended up happening was she went home at 10 o'clock. I went home at 10 o'clock and my brain kicked in again. And my brain realized that for the first time since I could remember when, I had not thought about Betsy from 6:30 to 10 o'clock that night. That I was not my first priority. That how I felt did not matter. That taking care of Beth mattered a whole lot more than what Betsy was feeling. And I will tell you that has been the biggest freedom from bondage I have ever found in Alcoholics Anonymous. My life today is a whole lot more about how you're doing than how I'm doing. I was on the phone today with my brother talking about that. And I said, you know what? I don't care how I'm doing. I got a great life. How are you doing? And as long as I keep doing love and service through Alcoholics Anonymous, I got a shot at having an incredible life. And I have an incredible life. When I was drinking, I used to sleep on a mattress with no sheets, and the roaches were like everywhere. And you'd wake up and the roaches would be like everywhere. It throw them off your body. And there was no heat and there was no air conditioning. And it was downtown D.C. and it was awful. And it's not that way today. It's not that way. I got up today from a bed that has 250 thread count sheets and everything matches. Everything matches. I brushed my teeth with my toothbrush that I didn't pull from my purse. I put on clean clothes today that were mine, And I've talked to 4 or 5 women I sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous by the time I pulled into this parking lot. As I was pulling into this parking lot, I was hanging up with one of my girls who I'll meet tomorrow. I sponsor a lot of women in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have a sponsor in Alcoholics Anonymous. There are no secrets. I have no secrets in my life. My sponsor, Nancy, taught me, you're as sick as your secrets, baby doll. What's going on? And that's the truth for me. If I got something I'm scared to share with my sponsor, you best believe it needs to come out. And I have no problem calling my sponsor morning, noon, or night. I don't care if I'm interrupting her dinner. I don't care if I'm waking her up. I don't care. I am here to stay sober. I'm not here to impress anybody. I'm not here to look good. I am here to not drink, because when I drink, my toothbrush is at the bottom of my purse, mixed in with the little pieces of nicotine from my cigarettes, and I'm trying to blow it out so I can brush my teeth the next day, if I can even find my purse. And it's not that way today. So that's Duke and I are doing this together, and I'm going to pass it on to him, and, I hope that, I'm so psyched you guys are doing this. Oh, I got to tell you, before I let Duke stand up, I got to tell you one thing. 11 years ago, I got together with 6 friends in Alcoholics Anonymous, and we decided we needed to start a new Monday night meeting. And we decided we needed to come up with a name for the Monday night group. And we sat around a guy named Andy R's house, and we opened the Big Book, and we came up with the theme of your convention. And we came up with that home group is to be called Common Solution. So just around 11 years ago, I started a group with 6 others, 2 of which are now dead. The other 5 of us are all still sober, that started that group where Jim comes from. It's amazing to me. Alcoholics Anonymous is amazing to me. I am so psyched, and I wish everybody that if they have to be in here a year from now, that they can also be sober at this convention. Thanks. Thanks for letting you too.
Hi, everybody. My name's Duke, and I'm an alcoholic.
explaining to a fellow before the meeting, my real name is Harold John McKenna. That's not very important. Duke is a nickname. I explained that to Baltimore County police officers one night. They had me shackled to a table, and the officer wanted to know why I traveled under an alias. And I said, well, it's a nickname because my grandfather gave it to me, but you wouldn't understand, officer, okay, because I had my run-ins with the boys in blue, and the longest I stayed in places like this was overnight, lightweight stuff. But it's really a privilege to be here, and the topic is sponsorship. I'd like to qualify myself a little bit first. In my alcoholism, my sobriety date is September the 2nd of 1990. I have a sponsor. See, I have the responsibility of having a sponsor, and I also have the honor of sponsoring several men in Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. For those of you who know Jim C. over here, I helped Jim out a little bit in here with some of the step work that he was doing, but he sponsored that group. He sponsored that institution. That's part of that is taking responsibility for somebody else, okay? And I'd like you to know how lucky you are to have a man like Jim who's willing to give of himself and to give of you. So I just wanted to give Jim that little accolade. He's a good man. And I know putting this thing together at the last minute was a rough deal on him. He called me, I guess it was Thursday, wanting to do this. And anyway, what I told Jimmy, there's, not everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous is my cup of tea. But for a guy like Jimmy to ask me to do something, I'd go 100 miles on my hands and knees over broken glass and rusty nails to try and help him out. Because that's the way he is, okay? But anyway, enough of that stuff. Ray, I think you said you were 26 years old. That's how old I was when I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was having problems in my first marriage, and no, actually, it was my second marriage. Boy, things go fast. And my father was a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. His sobriety date, his first meeting was April the 9th of 1971. A retired merchant seaman by the name of Lenny Nottingham sponsored the commitment at Spring Grove State Hospital. My father was a national sales director for Black & Decker. For him to wind up detox at a state mental hospital, that was a real comeuppance for him. But because a man that I never met, this fellow Lenny Nottingham, helped my father and took him and some other guys out to their first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, because the Randallstown group came in to Spring Grove State Hospital and carried the message, we lived in Randallstown. That was one of the reasons my father got sober and why he was sober in 1976 when I first came to AA. I checked things out. I wasn't ready. I told my dad that AA, that's a good crutch for a guy like you that needs it, which you don't understand, Dad, because, see, I'm a party guy, okay? And 14 years later, the party was over and I lost. My father came to my third anniversary from Phoenix, Arizona, and gave me my third-year chip. And he asked me how the crutch was working for me now, okay? And I get a little choked up when I think about that, because I never want what you all had. They said this is a program of attraction, not promotion. You could have promoted Alcoholics Anonymous to me